Alright, picture this for a second. A global cybersecurity company, the kind that protects everyone else, wakes up to find they have been hacked. Not by some bored teenager, not by ransomware crooks chasing a quick buck, but by a nation state. The defenders just became the target. This is the story of F5, a US company trusted by governments, banks, and tech giants all over the world. A year-long silent breach. Source code stolen, vulnerabilities exposed, and the global scramble that followed. Over the next few minutes, I'll break down exactly what happened, why this breach matters to all of us, and what kind of geopolitical storm is now kicking off. So, stick around until the end. I'll show you the scenarios that could unfold next, and trust me, this one goes way beyond cybersecurity. Alright then, let's get into it. Let's break this down into the key facts before we dive into the drama. F5, US cybersecurity company that makes the famous big IP systems, discovered on August 9th, 2025 that it had been quietly hacked. But here's the catch, the attackers had already been inside for almost a year before anyone noticed. They weren't after cash or chaos, this was espionage. A nation-state actors slipped in, stole parts of F5's source code, and grabbed unreleased vulnerability information, basically the secret list of holes that hadn't been patched yet. There was no ransomware, no ransom note, just silence. And when F5 finally went public on October 15, it triggered an emergency response from governments around the world. The US Cybersecurity Agency issued immediately an emergency directive, and the UK NCSC followed the next day. So to recap, 1 year of stealth, a breach confirmed in August, global panic by mid-October. And behind it all, a nation-state campaign that feels less like a hack and more like a long game. Now the real question is, why is this one so different? So let's talk about that next. So what makes this breach different? Because let's be honest, we hear about cyber attacks basically every week. So the difference is, this wasn't about the money, it was about the power. The attackers didn't encrypt file, they didn't demand a ransom in Bitcoin, they didn't want headlines, they just wanted control. They went straight for the source code, the digital DNA of F5's product, and for vulnerability data that hadn't been made public yet. In other words, they stole the blueprints and the weak spots at the same time. Why? Because that gives them the keys to the kingdom. Knowledge they can use later to break into anyone using F5 tech, quietly and whenever they want. This isn't your typical cybercrime story. This is cyber-espionage. It's the digital version of stealing missile plans or diplomatic cable. And remember, we're talking about a company that protects government, banks, and cloud giants. So when someone like this gets hacked, the ripple effect is massive. Now let's see who was really in the crosshairs, because spoiler, it wasn't just F5. So F5, yes, was the one being breached. But here's the twist, they weren't the end target, they were just the door. F5's devices, like Big IP, sit right in front of the most important systems on Earth. They manage and secure the traffic for banks, governments, telecoms, cloud platforms, and critical infrastructure. Basically, if the internet was a city, F5 would be the traffic cop at every major intersection. So by breaking into F5, these attackers didn't just steal a company's data. They potentially got inside into how thousands of other networks are built and defended. So think about it. When 48 of the Fortune 50 use your gear and the US government relies on it too, a breach like this doesn't stay contained. It becomes a global risk multiplier. F5 says only a small number of customer configuration files were stolen. But even that tiny fraction gives hackers a massive advantage. They know now how exactly some organizations have set up their defenses. So yes, the badge says F5, but the real victims might be spread across finance, defense, cloud, and government networks worldwide. Next up, we will zoom into how they pulled this off and where it all happened, because the details are straight out of an APT playbook. So let's peek inside the actual breach. This one actually reads more like a spy thriller. Everything started inside F5's own network, most likely in the US. The attackers got in through what's called a public-facing vulnerability, probably an exposed interface or an unpatched system on the edge of their infrastructure. Once they were in, they didn't make any noise. They were very quiet. No ransomware, no defacement, no bragging on the dark web. They quietly dropped a custom backdoor called Brickstorm, a piece of malware designed to blend in like a ghost. From there, they slowly moved laterally, hopping between systems, until they reached the goldmine, F5's development and engineering network, the place where basically the new big IP software is built and tested. That's where they struck pay dirt: the source code and internal vulnerability data. They took what they needed, encrypted it, and exfiltrated it in small chunks, hidden among normal network traffic, the digital version of walking out with stolen files under your jacket. And then they cleaned up. Logs wiped, access closed, everything neat and quiet. They vanished long before F5 even realized something was wrong. When F5 finally spotted the breach in August, the hackers were already gone, but the footprints they left behind told the whole story. This wasn't a smash and grab, this was precision espionage. Alright, so we know now how it happened, but when exactly did it all unfold? And let's look at the timeline. It will make your jaw drop. So let's rewind the clock. Mid-2024, that's when it likely began. Somewhere in F5's network, a nation-state actor quietly slipped in, and they just stayed. No alarms, no drama, just a lot of patience. And for about 12 months, they moved in the shadows, learning, mapping, collecting. Imagine a thief who lives inside a museum for a year, and no one notices. Then we jump to August 9th, 2025. F5 finally spots something odd. Security teams investigate, pull in the big names, CrowdStrike, Mandiant, and start looking down systems. By October 15th, F5 goes public. We have been breached, source code stolen, vulnerability data compromised. And within hours, boom, the US Cybersecurity Agency issues an emergency directive. That's when the story explodes. The next day, the UK and CSE joins the chorus. Government, banks, enterprises all scramble to patch their F5 devices. So think about that timeline. A year of total silence, followed by a week of global panic. That's the power of a breach like this, invisible until it suddenly hits everyone. So let's unpack now why it matters so much and why every government treated it like a national emergency. The reason is simple, because this wasn't just about one company losing some files. This was a chain reaction waiting to happen. See, by stealing F5 source code and undisclosed vulnerabilities, the attackers didn't just break into one vault. They stole the blueprints to thousands of others. That means any organization running F5 products, banks, telecoms, hospitals, government agencies, could now be vulnerable if they don't patch fast enough. Think about it, the hackers now know exactly how F5 systems work under the hood and which parts might actually still be weak. That's like a thief, getting the full architectural plan of every building in town. And the ripple effect doesn't stop here. When a security vendor gets breached, it shakes trust across the entire supply chain. If even the protectors can be compromised, how secure can the rest of us really feel? Now, to be clear, F5 says they have patched the issues and there's no sign of tampering, there are software updates, but the damage isn't just technical, it's psychological, it's about trust. This breach forced everyone, governments, enterprises, and even individuals, to realize that no one is too secure to be targeted. So now that we understood the impact, let's look a little bit at how the attackers pulled this off, step by step, straight from the APT playbook. So, time for the playbook. We have covered the who, what, and why. Now let's walk through the how they did it, step by step, plain and simple. 1. Get in. The attackers found a way into F5's edge systems. Think of an exposed management interface or an unpatched service, and use that opening to get a foothold. 2. Stay hidden. They installed a stealthy backdoor, the kind of malware that acts like a ghost. No noisy ransomware, just a quiet channel to come and go. 3. Move quietly. From that foothold, they moved sideways inside the network until they reached the development systems, the place that hold the source code and bug reports. Step 4. Collect the prize. They copied source code and internal vulnerability nodes, the exact things you don't want an adversary to have, then exfiltrated it in small, invisible chunks. 5. Cover tracks and disappear. They wiped or altered logs and removed easy traces of their activity, so the breach could go undiscovered for months. If you like frameworks, you can easily map this into the attack framework with initial access, persistence, privilege escalation, lateral movement, collection, exfiltration. It's really textbook APT tradecraft, just executed with surgical patience. The scary part? They targeted systems that many defenders don't monitor closely. Appliances, build servers, internal wikis, places we often treat as trusted and quiet. If you run enterprise networks, screenshot this slide now. These 5 steps are the playbook you need to hunt for. So let's now look into the global response, what a global response actually looks like once the breach went public, and why government had to move so fast. So we have the breach going public and the reaction is immediate. This is where the story stops being just a corporate incident and become a national emergency. First move, F5 publishes the disclosure and drops an emergency patch set. At that time, they rotate signing keys and kick off a full forensic sweep. That's the vendor doing damage control, fast and loud. Second move, governments step in. The US Cybersecurity Agency issues an emergency order telling federal agencies to inventory every F5 box and apply patches now. The UK Cyber Agency issues its own alert. Allies start sharing intelligence behind the scenes. But why the rush? Because the stolen code equals a short window where attackers could weaponize those vulnerabilities and everyone using F5 gear could be exposed. So it became a race, patch widely or risk being next. Meanwhile, security firms and incident responders flood in. Threat hunters, EDR teams, the whole brigade, looking for the Brickstorm backdoor and other signs of compromise. Customers scramble to apply fixes, scan their network, rotate secrets. Bottom line, the response was coordinated, urgent, and multi-layered. vendor patched, government mandates, and mass threat hunting. If you're watching this and you manage network, that's your cue. Treat the alert like a fire alarm. Pause the video now if you need to. Check your F5 devices, your patch status, your management interfaces. Then you can come right back. There's one slide left with the practical checklist that I promised earlier. Is a Defender playbook. So the specific high-value actions that you can take today to reduce risk. What we can do right now. So here are 6 quick moves that will make a big difference if you use F5 or honestly any network infrastructure. Number 1, patch immediately. Sounds obvious, but it's the single biggest factor between being safe and being next week's headline. Number 2, lock down management access. If your devices are reachable from the internet, you're basically leaving your front door open. Move management behind the VPN, add MFA, restricted to via IP. Number 3, retire all gear. If it's past end of support, it's a zombie. CISA literally said disconnect or decommission those. Number 4, rotate your secrets. Any credentials or API keys linked to F5 boxes, change them. Don't assume they are safe if the vendor got breached. And number 5, verify what you install. F5's rotated its signing certificate, so always double check firmware signatures and checksums before deploying updates. And number 6, turn up visibility. Stream your device logs to your SIEM. Monitor admin logins, config changes, and weird spikes in outbound traffic. That's your 6-step cyber hygiene kit. Simple, fast, and effective. I've put a downloadable checklist in the description below. Print it, share it with your team, or stick it to your SOC wall. Seriously, 2 minutes with that list today could save you from nightmare later. Alright, now this breach wasn't just technical. It's part of a much bigger geopolitical game that's unfolding right now. Let's take a look at what's happening behind the scene then. As you said, this breach is not just a cyber incident. It's part of a much bigger geopolitical chess match that's been playing out quietly for years. All signs point to a China-linked espionage group, the same kind of actor behind other strategic campaigns like Brickstorm. Their goal isn't ransom, it's information dominance, which means getting access to the technology that powers Western infrastructure. See, over the last few years, cyber operations have become the new battlefield. Instead of tanks and missiles, we are seeing source code and vulnerabilities being weaponized. It's espionage, but at digital scale, stealing the blueprints that keep entire economies running. That's how it is. So when a US security vendor like F5 gets breached, it's not just an attack on one company. It's a strategic message. We can reach into your core technology. And this happens at a time when the US and China are already locked in tension over AI, semiconductors, and tech influence. The F5 breach fits perfectly into that narrative. It's about control of the digital infrastructure that runs the modern world. That's why Washington reacted so fast. This isn't just patch management, it's national security. And it's likely why we'll see new sanctions, more export controls, and an even stronger push for trusted technology ecosystems. Let me know now in the comments, do you think this kind of cyber espionage crosses the line into cyber warfare? I'm really curious to hear what do you think. I have an idea, but I'm really open, to hear your comments and your thoughts on that. Up next, we'll talk about where this could go next and the possible scenarios that the world might face after this breach. So we have seen how the breach happened, what it means, and even the geopolitical layer behind it. So now let's look forward. What happens next? There are a few realistic scenarios unfolding right now, and trust me, every one of them changes the game in a different way. Short term, we'll probably see a race. Hackers will rush into weaponizing the stolen vulnerabilities before everyone finishes patching. That means new exploits, targeted intrusions, maybe even ransomware crews, jumping in for a quick payday. It's a patch of perish moment for a lot of companies. Midterm, expect fallout, public attribution, possible sanctions, and more cyber diplomacy drama between the US and China. Governments will tighten regulations, and vendors will face new compliance rule on how they secure their development pipelines. The phrase "secure by design" is about to go from buzzword to law. Long term, this could accelerate the global tech decoupling that's already in motion. We might see two distinct technology ecosystems emerge, one led by Western nations, the other by China and its allies, each running its own trusted networks, hardware and software stacks. In other words, the internet as we know it today could start to split into geopolitical zones, one global network divided by digital borders. So yeah, the F5 breach wasn't just another security story, it's a preview of the world we are heading toward, where cybersecurity, economics, and politics all merge into one battlefield. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who manages enterprise networks. And let me know in the comments, which scenario you think it's most likely. Exploit chaos, diplomatic tension, or the big tech split. Alright, that's it for today's deep dive into the F5 breach, one of the biggest cybersecurity stories of the year. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We are going to talk about how cyber-espionage is reshaping global power and the future of online trust over the next episodes. You can check out the video right here, and if you want the free patch checklist and the threat hunting queries, they are linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay curious, and remember that in cybersecurity, awareness is your best defense. See you on the next one.